There's no better time to act than the present. What are you waiting for? We're here and we need you.
What do an aerospace engineer, cancer immunologist, and bat scientist all have in common? We all have cool jobs in STEM fields. Whether it's building robots or learning to code, girls everywhere are finding their passion for science, technology, engineering, and math through positive role models and mentors. So dare to dive in, get connected, and explore. You never know what your future may hold. Learn more about these and even more cool jobs at SheCanSTEM.com.
You're not gonna get it all right. Just make sure you nail the big stuff.
Mama!
Like making sure your kids are in the right seat for their age and size. Get it right at nhtsa.gov/the-right-seat.
Being a growing company, it's been great to be in a growing city like Glendale.
If someone were to tell us that they want to move their business to Glendale, I'd be telling them that they're making a great decision. You have the ability to grow your business in Glendale.
Glendale was an ideal location for us, and we believe in the community, and we are we're appreciative also of the support we're getting from the city leadership.
Good evening and welcome to the September 13 Civil Service Commission meeting for the City of Glendale. May we please have a roll call?
Commissioner Hatamian,
Here.
Commissioner Hartunian,
Here.
Commissioner McGrabian,
Here.
Chair Kazarian.
Here, thank you. Next item, please.
Minutes, consideration for the minutes of August 16th, 2023 meeting.
Is there a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Hatamian,
I'll abstain, I wasn't here.
Commissioner Hartunian,
Yes.
Commissioner McGrabian,
Yes.
Chair Kazarian.
Yes, thank you. Next item, please.
Oral communications, I do not have any callers on the line or have any calls.
Thank you. I see no one approaching the lectern, so next item, please.
Recruitment and examination report.
Thank you, Ms. Adams.
Yes, Mr. Chair and members of the commission, this is the regular recruitment and examination status report, which represents the current recruitments in process and that our team is working on. You'll notice that our team has 82 open recruitments at this time, and they are at various stages of the examination and selection process, and this report reflects those various stages. If the commission has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Otherwise, this is a note and file item.
Any questions?
No questions.
No questions.
Thank you. Next item, please.
Eligible list established.
Thank you, Ms. Adams.
Yes, Mr. Chair and members of the commission, the subject before the commission is the regular report that includes all of the eligible lists that were recently established since our last meeting in August. This report includes the total number of applications and the number of individuals that advanced through the various stages of our examination processes. Since our last meeting, we have had a total of 11 lists established. 7 were open to the public, 1 was given on a promotional basis, and 3 were on an open and promotional basis. This is also a note and file item. However, if the commission has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions?
No question.
No questions.
Thank you, Ms. Adams. Next item, please.
Job bulletin for approval, police sergeant.
Thank you, Ms. Adams.
Yes, Mr. Chair and members of the commission, we are seeking your approval for the promotional job bulletin for police sergeant. The civil service rules require that all police promotional positions return to the commission for approval prior to opening a new recruitment and promulgating the job opening. The job bulletin is consistent with the current class specifications for police sergeant, and the selection process is consistent with the last recruitment, which included a written exam and 2 oral assessment panels. We plan to post the bulletin this upcoming Monday, September 18th, and keep it open until September 29th, 2023. We plan for the respective examinations to take place in October and have noted this in detail on the bulletin. Of note, at the request of the police department and in accordance with Commission Rule 4, the eligible list for this recruitment will be valid for 1 year. Together, the HR department and the police department discussed with the Glendale Police Officers Association the 1-year eligibility list, and they have no concerns with the length of the list for the job bulletin itself. The Police Officers Association stated that they understand the police chief's vision going forward, so therefore we respectfully request that the proposed job bulletin for police sergeant be approved as submitted. If there are any specific questions from the chair or commissioners, we have Deputy Chief Andrew Jinks here, as well as staff from the HR department, and they will be happy to answer any specific questions that you have.
Thank you. Questions?
I do have a question regarding the supplemental questionnaire at the end of, I believe it's on page 12. That speaks of the college semester units. Is that part of the minimum requirement, or is that just a desirable qualification? I believe it's question number 2 on page 12.
Question number 2, Mr. Quad?
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, Commissioner Hatamian, the question number 2 on the supplementals addressing the 60 college semester units is actually a minimum requirement shown under the education and training section on page 11. So it is preferred, however, it is not a requirement. So if they do have it, they are encouraged to attach it.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Kwan, I have a question. So, could you tell me if this has always been the case for the department to seek promotional opportunities or provide promotional opportunities to officers to become sergeants, where even the first possible post-high school diploma is preferred but not required? Has that always been the case? Perhaps somebody can answer that.
I'll address it. Good evening, Commissioner Gazarian, members of the commission, Deputy Chief Andrew Jenks. Before I start, I'd like to welcome our returning and new commissioners, and thank you for taking the time for this important commission. Chair Gazarian, as far as I am aware, this is not changed. This is the same requirement and the recommended education requirements as long as I've been involved in the testing process. So that's at least for the last 10 or 15 years.
Okay, because I have no independent recollection, and this type of a bulletin has come up before this body the last decade or more that I've been here, but I have no specific recollection if that was always a preferred. And if it's always been a preferred, then so be it. But if it's been changed, I'd like to know the reasoning behind it. And I understand it hasn't been changed, it's been the same.
That is correct, Chair Gazarian, that is correct. No changes have been made to the class specification, and this job bulletin is consistent with the said class specification.
Very well. Go ahead.
I did have a question about the experience as well. As I understand it, a sergeant position is a supervisory position, and my question is, in what way does the first 3 years of a police officer's employment, and maybe as a field patrol officer, they do obtain supervisory skills, but do police officers or field training officers do obtain supervisory skills to prepare them for a supervisory position in about 3 years?
The 3-year requirement is really the minimum. I would say the minimum for someone to take the test. So it's a very competitive process, and they're going to be competing against, typically we'll have between 30 to 40 applicants for the sergeant's promotional. And I would say the average person, this is just, ballpark average would be 7 to 15 years is usually the experience level, but the minimum requirements is 3 years.
Okay, thank you.
For the record, I note that under education and training, there is a requirement of intermediate post certificate, which is good. And also note, more importantly, that there is a requirement indeed, aside from an AA degree or an AS degree being preferred, there indeed is a requirement of 60 college semester units. And that's what I was looking for. I was thinking, although, I have no specific recollection, but I would hope that someone that promotes to a position of sergeant, who may act as a lieutenant in the absence of a lieutenant, has some college education. And I'm pleased to see that the 60 units are there as a requirement, because that essentially is the equivalent of an AA or an AS degree. And I have no further comments. Thank you. Any other comments or questions?
No.
Just to clarify your comment, I thought
the response to the earlier question to Commissioner Atamian was that the 60 units is preferred, not required, right?
I think it's a misstatement or a misinterpretation from Mr. Kwan, and he can speak for himself, but I read the writing, 60 college semester units is required, but an AA or AS degree is preferred. So, Mr. Kwan, is 60 units required or preferred?
Chair Gazarian, members of the commission, 60 college semester units is required, but as noted, there is a semicolon in the class specification, and the AA or AS degree is preferred.
So we are missing the semicolon in our version. That's the confusion.
Well, in the actual job bulletin, it does say 60 college semester units is required, but an AA or AS degree is preferred.
Even without the semicolon, I see no confusion. It clearly says 60 college units is required, but an AA or AS is preferred.
That is correct.
That just tells me, in order for someone to have an AA or an AS, they have to have some certain general education. And frankly, if a police officer has 60 units of criminology classes, I would find them much more suitable for that position than an AA degree that took home economics, for example. Thank you.
I do truly myself believe that the minimum qualifications for training and education and experience are very low for a position that may be an acting lieutenant. But if this is what has been the practice and has been working and has been successful in the past, then that's acceptable.
Commissioner, I would only add that in the competitive process, we're really looking for people who are experienced leaders, who have law enforcement experience, and through our testing process, we really look for ways to, for the applicant to be able to express their leadership experience, maybe possibly their detective experience, their training experience. So when you get in that competitive process, a lot more goes into it beyond just the minimum qualifications. And I would argue we have some of the best sergeants in LA County, if not California.
Thank you for that.
You would never argue. You would reason with us. You would never argue. You would reason. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
No.
Any motion to approve? Do we need a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Yes.
All right. Commissioner Hatamian,
Yes.
Commissioner Hartunian,
Yes.
Commissioner McGrabian,
Yes.
Chair Gazarian.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy
Thank
Chief.
you.
Next item, please.
Class specification for approval, Economic Development Coordinator Series.
Thank you, Ms. Adams.
Yes, Mr. Chair and members of the commission, we are here to request your approval for the revised class specification for the Economic Development Coordinator Series in the Community Development Department. The series was created in 2012 and within the series, certain positions are responsible for the coordination of a wide range of economic development projects to strengthen business retention, attract new programs or programming, provide business assistance on projects, and other citywide promotional programs, including their marketing and public relations related tasks. As we would expect in economic development, landscapes change, and more progressive strategies must change and be incorporated with those changes. Therefore, the department is proposing to update some of the job functions, minimum requirements, and bring the series up to date with industry standards. We agree with the department that a one-year public sector requirement for the senior economic development classification is not essential, and more importantly, focusing on attracting the best qualified applicants is key, whether they are from the private sector or the public sector. Our goal is to enable the department to broaden the pool of well-qualified candidates. Additionally, the department is adding some of the city's standard boilerplate language to the series to ensure consistency with other class specifications that we have. We have notified the Glendale Management Association, and they have not expressed any concerns with anything that I have mentioned. Therefore, we are respectfully requesting that the revised class specification for the Economic Development Coordinator Series be approved as submitted. If you have any questions, we have Shua Vang, the Deputy Director of the Community Development Department here, along with HR staff, and they will be happy to answer any specific questions that you have.
Any questions?
I do have one question on the cross-out as to who this individual would be reporting to, the Deputy Director assigned to Economic Development.
What page are you referring to?
I apologize, page
Beginning?
15.
I'm sorry?
Page 15.
15.
Yeah, it's the first cross-out.
The first cross-out, okay.
Yeah,
I had the same question.
okay. So I'm just wondering, are they gonna be reporting to another individual in the classification?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the Commission. Shua Vang, Deputy Director of Economic Development. So as it pertains to the Senior Economic Development Coordinator position, potentially it would report either to the Principal Economic Development Officer or myself, the Deputy Director.
So is there a reason why that's not stated on here, or is that something that's gonna be determined later on and therefore we just kind of left it open for that interpretation?
If I may perhaps defer to HR to answer that question.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the Commission, Aldo Vardanyan. So the reason why we said under general supervision is because those tasks may change. So the position may report to the Assistant Director, and then maybe the Deputy Director, depends on staffing. So as of today, it is the Principal, Economic Development. Tomorrow may be the Deputy Director, but tomorrow it can be the Assistant. So just to keep it general, that's why we put the general language there.
It just reads awkwardly. That's the problem with it. The way that it reads now, it seems like something's missing.
It is actually very consistent with a lot of class specs that we have.
Okay, so that sentence is,
Correct.
Okay, if it's consistent, then that's fine.
I think so long as the functions don't change, so you don't have an issue with like out of class, so like let's say they're reporting to me and I have these requirements of this individual, and then now they're gonna report to Garo, and then Garo has different standards, right? So long as that stays consistent within those supervisors, I understand why you provided the leverage. So those supervisors have to understand what the duty specs are and just stick to that.
Correct.
Yeah, so that was one question I had. And then I just noticed there was a move from where it says ensures department services are provided, and this is the second red. That was inserted there, but it was crossed out on page 16.
Correct, Commissioner Hatamian. That was a direction that we received from the commission previously, I want to say about a year ago,
Okay,
to keep customer service related tasks on top.
understood.
I remember that.
And then the educational training on page 17, that was crossed out, the master's degree in related fields. Is it that we were having a hard time recruiting? That's why we just got rid of that component so we can have a bigger pool, or?
I will let Ms. Vang answer that.
Okay.
Thank you for the question. So as it relates to the master's degree, we actually looked at multiple best practices from municipalities, and they do not require a master's degree for these positions, as noted here. We don't think it's necessary a requirement or highly desirable component. For me, being 15 plus years in economic development, what's critical to the core operations and success of the division is really the experience.
Got it. And you made comparables, I'm sorry, you made comparables to other municipalities. Can you
Yes, we did.
provide examples as to, are they local or?
Yes, so all actually throughout Southern California. So even neighboring cities such as City of Pasadena, we looked at Orange County, City of Anaheim. We also looked at the Inland Empire, San Bernardino County.
Got it. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Any other questions?
Yes, I do think.
ahead.
Only because it's on the same topic, if I may. I was looking at that too, and then I realized it was only desirable. It wasn't even required. Why cross it out if it's not even requirement? The master's degree.
We don't feel it's relevant, so to speak. Again, I've been in the economic development field for over 15 years, and for this type of, it's not necessarily entry level. It does require a little bit more seasoned experience, but again, we looked at other municipalities, and they do not have master's degree as a requirement or highly desirable.
I'm going to return to you, but I'll speak last. Please go ahead.
Thank you. My question is about the removal of the real estate information and adding asset management instead. Does the term asset make it more broad than real estate, and in what way?
Yeah, great question. So with asset management, we feel that aligns with the work that we do in economic development, given that we are looking at managing properties from a long-term perspective, really looking at the big picture and looking at maximizing return on investment on commercial city-owned properties. As it relates to the real estate development component, that's more managing the day-to-day operations, providing financial reports. That's not something that we do in economic development. And so hence we made the adjustment, given that we thought that was more in alignment with what we do.
And so this position would not then need a real estate license to do their job?
No, that would not be a requirement.
Okay. I do like the supervisory experience added to the requirements. I saw that, I like that. Okay, no more questions on my
Any other questions?
One final question in regards to the master's degree. So I'm thinking, I'm putting on my employee relations hat, right? And I entrust you with putting forth this requirement or putting out a requirement. If you have an employee that joined the city and obtained a master's degree, and they may be a candidate, right? And so they've reviewed the prior requirements, so they got their master's degree. Do you foresee any ER-related issues in your shop by removing this desirable requirement of the master's degree?
At this time, I don't foresee any issues. Perhaps that's something, I don't know if HR or another division would be more appropriate to address, but.
No, when we look at our internal candidate pool, I don't foresee that being a problem at all.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions?
No.
Very well. I did question the removal, as both commissioners to my right and left referred to, of that which is highly desirable. Why remove it? I was a bit taken aback by the education training, the master's degree being highly desirable versus the real estate license being desirable. And I know nothing about economic development, but I do know something about setting an example. And I take pride in our city. So when I hear, this is not the first evening I've heard what you said. Others have said it in the past over the years. We looked at other municipalities. Well, that's interesting to me, because I assume if we're looking at other municipalities are looking at us as well. So if other municipalities had looked at us in the past and they saw that we had a master's degree being highly desirable, a California real estate license being desirable, and they discounted our model and they went their merry way, and now we are following suit, I sure hope that the reasoning is that we, A, as a city, want to remain competitive, and B, more importantly, we want to remain competitive without compromising value for product and salary for services and things of that sort. I just have always, I've never spoken out about this. We looked at other municipalities. You know, I take pride, again, I'm going to repeat that. I take pride in the city and it's all of its departments. There's a reason why, you know, we refer to it as a jewel city. And I ask in the future to not be so swayed by other municipalities unless there is a serious issue of competitiveness and being able to tap into the best employee pool out there. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
In relation to what you said, Chief, I don't want someone who has a master's degree not to apply, thinking that's not going to be appreciated or compensated. And in that way, the city standards, the values and standards will be lowered unintentionally. So while I understand why that was removed, I do want to have high standards for the city as well and not dissuade people who are highly educated from putting themselves into the pool. So I don't know, maybe it's not highly desirable, but it may be preferred. But it looks like everyone on the commission has a discomfort with the master's degree requirement being removed.
I want to echo what, Garo had to say about this, because look, for retention and recruitment, I face it daily. To have the two different teams that I run. You can have highly educated people that also have supervisory experience, but then if your pool gets smaller, right, then that's an issue. So I just want to know, was that part of the consideration why the master's degree was removed, or was it just you're comparing Glendale to other cities and you're like, well, they don't have it, maybe we should also remove it?
And before you
Sorry,
answer
Mr.
that
Chair.
question, if you would permit
Absolutely.
me, I'm confused overall. I'm trying to understand the reasoning, because you have two job specifications here that I see. I see economic development coordinator with a distinguishing factor of 2 years of experience in economic development, which is bottom of page 17, top of page 18 of my packet. And then I see senior economic development coordinator, which I take that to mean someone more important in a role, and more important of a role. And I see 4 years of experience in economic development versus the two that the economic development coordinator series is. Am I then to assume that both economic development coordinator and senior economic development coordinator, both of those, the requirement is a bachelor's degree in city or urban planning, economics, et cetera, but neither of them, not even the more serious position, if for lack of a better, different word, even a master's degree is desirable. The educational requirement is the same for both. The only difference is one has 2 years of experience, the other one has 4 years minimum. Correct? Am I correct in?
That's correct.
Okay. All right. All right. Well, unless there's a motion to make friendly amendments, I don't want to step in on anybody's toes here. I'm looking for something, either a motion to approve as is, or anything of any other form.
Chair Gazarian,
that our council thinks is appropriate for this.
if I may just have, if you can just answer my last question too, in regards to the retention recruitment issue and the master's degree, is that part of the reasoning, or was it just because you made it comparable to other cities and?
We looked at we took multiple items into consideration. So not only from a best practice standpoint, but we really wanted to expand the diversity of the pool of candidates as well. And so that way we can capture other candidates to be considered.
I'll make it very simple. Do you, as you stand here, believe that a master's degree, desirable or undesirable, there or not there, makes no difference so long as somebody has a bachelor's degree and has 2 years of experience minimum or 4 years of experience minimum? You think they can do the job and they can do it as good as someone with or without a master's degree? Doesn't matter.
I'm speaking from direct experience. I've had the privilege to lead multiple teams, and several talented individuals do not have a master's degree, but they do possess the necessary experience and skill set, where it's led to a number of success stories. So again, I'm going off of my own direct experience and really looking at other municipalities, as well as taking into consideration wanting to expand the pool of qualified candidates.
So that part is understood. It's just a part of having a master's degree that's a desirable. So you do want to have the pool of people that can compete. A master's degree is just not a degree that will say you're going to do a great job. It's a proof that that individual was responsible enough to show up on time to class for several years, right, and do the work necessary in that class, have the discipline in order for them to obtain that degree. So that's where the confusion is, in that you have the ability to tap into that candidate pool that doesn't have a master's degree, but when you remove a desirable, then the individual who has a master's degree doesn't have an edge, and they were able to obtain that degree, right? And we all can agree that that was not an easy task for them to accomplish.
Well, forgive me, Commissioner Hatamian, perhaps whether they have an edge or not is not something that I at least am concerned about, but rather I don't want someone to be discouraged. And I'm heartened by the fact that this education and training section is one of the subsections of main heading of minimum requirements. But of course, when we focus on one paragraph, we lose sight of the fact that when you have said bachelor's degree, that's the minimum requirement. There's nothing to keep anyone that has beyond the minimum requirement to apply for the position. So I don't want to say, add at least bachelor's degree, because you're already saying minimum requirements. So in terms of an edge, though, Commissioner Hatamian, I don't know. Some people with a master's degree may be wonderful, and others without it may be even better. Of course, it's an individual assessment of each candidate, I suppose. But I leave it to my fellow commissioners. I'm ready to proceed any which way you see fit.
I'm ready to make a motion.
Okay?
I move to keep the master's degree as desirable, not highly desirable, and also keep the years of experience.
What about the experience? I'm sorry?
Also keep the years of supervisory experience.
Which part is that is not
Because
there?
the supervisory experience was added and the master's degree was taken off. There was a supervisory, if you look at experience, including 2 years of supervisory experience is added in there. I'd like to keep the supervisory experience. Next page, sir.
Oh, that's it. Okay. On which one? On the senior?
What's the other position?
Yes.
Okay.
If I may, the supervisory experience was something that we are proposing to be added for the senior coordinator.
Only
it
the
didn't
senior.
exist as it stands today.
Okay, so let me clarify my motion. I move to keep the master's degree in a related field as desirable, not highly desirable, just desirable.
Just to clarify, you move to approve the bulletin with the addition of what you just said with regard to the master's degree.
Yes, please.
I second.
As amended? As amended.
No, the motion is not being amended. The motion in its entirety is to approve the bulletin with that additional language kept in.
But the language is not in right now. It's being presented to us without the language, so if we're asking for the language to be kept in essence, we are amending that which is
The
presented.
bulletin, but not the motion.
No, I understand. The motion is to approve the bulletin with an amendment.
Correct.
Okay, right. All right. There's a motion, there's a second. Roll call, please. There's no need for discussion on that, is there?
If you could continue to have a discussion on that point
Does anybody want to have a
alone.
discussion about that?
I'm fine with the amendment.
Okay,
Yeah.
then proceed. Thank you.
Commissioner Hatamian,
Yes.
Commissioner Hartunian,
Yes.
Commissioner McGrabian,
Yes.
Chair Gazarian.
Yes. Thank you. Next item, please.
Class specification for approval, permit services technician series.
Thank you, Ms. Adams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the commission. We are here to request your approval for the revised class specification for the Permit Services Technician Series in the Community Development Department. This series was created 17 years ago in September 2006. The job classifications within the series are responsible for a wide range of administrative, financial, and technical work, including reviewing plans and applications for permits, responding to customer inquiries related to permit procedures, plan submittals, and providing customer services support at the Building and Safety's public counter. It does seem like the workforce shortage is here to stay, and it has become increasingly more challenging to recruit and retain candidates interested in working in positions within the Permit Services Technician Series. Therefore, the department is seeking approval to revise the minimum requirements for each position within the series to potentially broaden the applicant pool. The department is also requesting to update the essential functions for each classification to reflect the current job duties. We have also added a standard boilerplate city language to the series to ensure consistency with all other class specifications. The Glendale City Employees Association has been notified of the department's request for the proposed revisions and has not expressed any concerns. Therefore, we respectfully request that the revised class specification for the Permit Services Technician Series be approved as submitted. Again, we have HR staff here along with our building official and Permit Services Administrator who will be happy to answer any specific questions that you have.
Thank you. Any questions?
Yes, please.
Go ahead.
We just discussed the customer service and ethical standards language was added for consistency. And what I noted was for the last position we discussed, it said and ethical standards, but for this one, it says and the highest level of ethical standards. So if we're going to be consistent for all of our positions, this language is not consistent, and I'm not sure why this position wants the highest level of ethical standards, but the last one was fine with just ethical standards.
Commissioner McRobian, we will make that correction.
Which one will you choose?
We'll do the standard one, which is this one ensures departmental services are provided with exceptional customer service and highest level of ethical
So
standards.
we're adding the highest to all of them?
Correct.
Thank you.
Sure.
Consistency is good.
It's all the specs are like that, so.
You know, Mr. Andonian approach.
Yes, sir.
I want you to know that on both of them, your thinking and your standard to me is the same, because what you have done in the previous one, you've referred to it, the highest customer service and ethical standards, and I take that to mean the highest customer service and the highest ethical standards. That's how I take that to mean. In the next one, you've written it in such a way that my colleague obviously looks at it and says, wait a minute, you know, you're talking exceptional customer service, you've separated it, and highest level of ethical standards, and I agree with her, the language ought to be consistent. Although I think your intention is to hold everyone to the highest ethical standards, highest customer service, when you start talking about exceptional versus highest, I mean, these are, you know, there's no distinction, but there is a distinction, yes.
For consistency's sake, I always say, pick a lane, any lane, just pick one.
So this is the evening we're picking on everybody, but.
Will do.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Thank you. Any other questions? Go ahead.
I do have one or two more questions. Are we changing job duties or making them more broad and vague so as not to scare people away?
I will let Mr. Rodarte, the subject matter expert, answer those questions.
Thank you.
That's a good call, Mr. Randall.
Chair Kazarian, Ms. McRobian, and city staff. My name is Joseph Rodarte. I'm the permit administrator, building and safety. We are actually making the changes because of it's not so much the duties, but the changing of times. These have not been cleaned up, and you'll see some of the language in here refers to public works, and we're no longer attached in underneath that guidance of public works. So underneath building and safety is a separate division. So most of this is just cleanup language, but there are some things that we have changed over the last 2 years. We've gone to an online training or an online submittal system, so it's fully integrated. So some of those duties have changed because they no longer exist, like cashiering. We used to do receipting by hand. That's no longer in there. So it's mainly those functions.
Okay, so we're just moving up with the times and
Correct.
making it modern.
Correct.
Thank you. That answers my question.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I do have one question for Ms. Adams. Are these classifications represented by the union?
Yes, they are.
Yeah, and I may have not caught it in the intro, but are the unions, have they been provided the new job specs?
Yes, they have.
And has been approved? Okay.
Yes.
Very good, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, sir. Any motions?
Move to approve.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Hatamian,
Yes.
Commissioner Hartunian,
Yes.
Commissioner McGrabian,
Yes.
Chair Gazarian.
Yes, thank you. Next item, please.
Class specification for approval, Clean Energy Officer.
Thank you, Ms. Adams.
Yes, Mr. Chair and members of the commission, we are here to request your approval for the newly established class specification for Clean Energy Officer position with the Glendale Water and Power. In order to implement the City Council's vision and adopt a more clean energy resources, the Glendale Water and Power Department is proposing to add a new management classification to lead this effort. In this capacity, the position will oversee the Clean Energy Consumers Program section and will direct all internal clean energy efforts such as new energy technology deployment, utility program development, and key account services. Typically, these transactions go before the City Council first to establish the title and pay, followed by the Civil Service Commission to approve the class specification. However, given the Civil Service Commission meeting schedule and the immediate need to fill this position, the class specification is being presented to the Commission for approval first in order to prevent any delays, and the resolution establishing the classification for Clean Energy Officer will go before the City Council on September 26.
Thank you, Ms. Adams. Before I open it up for any questions, are you then saying that, assuming this body approves this class specification, it's going to go to City Council, but is it going to come back again for us to reapprove the pay rate and all that stuff, or no?
No, you don't approve the pay.
Okay, all right. Because every other specification seems to have a pay rate in there.
Right, because it's established by the council, but the commission, the Civil Service
Yeah, we
Commission,
don't
doesn't
touch
approve that.
Correct, thank you. Questions?
Yes,
questions?
yes.
Okay.
We're back to picking a lane in any lane. We need to make the language consistent here as well.
What page are you referring to?
For essential functions,
Exceptional customer service and the highest level of ethical standards.
and also the same language is on the next page, page 34, on the bottom for under the ability to. Today is grammar day.
Do we want to put highest ethical standards there too?
I don't care what we put as long as we have it all consistent.
All right. Okay,
I have a question.
go ahead.
I'm looking on the chart on page 37. Since this position does not require a degree in science or engineering, do any of the other position on this chart, does anyone have a science degree on this chart?
Commissioner, we have Scott Millen, the Assistant General Manager for GWP Power Management here, along with HR staff, and they can answer that question for you.
Thank you, Ms. Adams.
Good evening, Scott Mellon, AGM of Glendale Water and Power. I believe that they do. There are some, I don't know them all right off the top of my head, but I believe there are at least a couple that do have either engineering or along those lines, science degrees.
So I guess my question is more like not individuals, if we know a certain individual has it, but any of those positions, do they require a science or engineering degree, since this is a, environmentally related specification, and we have degrees in marketing, management? I understand how they could relate.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering if anyone on this chain of command has a
Does have
science,
them?
any of the positions on this chain of command actually require a science degree?
I'd have to say I believe so, but I don't know so right off the top of my head.
Mr.
I'd have to look at all the positions.
I'm sorry. Mr. Mellon, do you have a science degree? You're in the chain of command?
Yes. I'm at the top, though.
Yes.
That's
But I
good to
believe
know.
you're asking for those who report to this position?
Correct.
I don't know how this position can properly supervise people in this area with a marketing degree. I honestly don't know why we have a marketing degree and not an engineering degree in here. I would love to hear the answer to that question.
I think the primary focus of this position was originally dreamed up. Again, this was a directive from council. We're looking at implementing this job because it's we're putting all of our energy or renewable energy efforts under a single umbrella, and that's going to help us push towards the future. But I think part of that was the concept of customer engagement. And it's been expressed to us several times by council that we need to work on our customer engagement. And I think the marketing arm has that ability more so. So I think that's why there was an emphasis in that particular degree.
However, which I understand, thank you for the explanation. However, this person will be required to supervise people who do require science degrees, and I don't know how successful that management opportunity will be when the manager doesn't know the requirements of the subordinate's job duties.
Sure. That's a very legitimate point. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, the issue may be that the subordinates may know more than the supervisor when it comes to the specific field, versus if this is a marketing job, then, you know, obviously the title comes across as a clean energy officer. So yeah, I echo that sentiment. My question was more in line of, if this individual, and I'm looking at the chain of command, is going to be managing others, do we have the same boilerplate language in here for management classifications when it comes to managing staff? So I do see the third paragraph here on page 33 that talks about managing staff, contractors, or consulting firms, and so on. But I'm sure there's like the typical management classification, conducting PEs, performance management, etc. Does it include that language, and does it need to include that language because they're going to be managing a chain of subordinates?
Mr. Mellon, will you speak to this addition to the org chart? It's new. We're standing this up. And so the job classifications listed below, Clean Energy Officer, they have not actually been filled yet, have they?
But there have been, no, these are some filled positions. What we're doing is taking areas that already exist and rolling them up and under, because we think it's going to be more effective to have that kind of guidance with this particular group. You know, we have public benefit charge manager, which handles the public benefit funds. We have the low carbon fuel standard funds that are handled under this. So there's a lot of the individual programs that associated with solar installation and things like that. So I hear what you're asking, especially if it's related to the marketing degree. I know that it's not uncommon to have engineers report to individuals that do not have engineering degrees, but I do hear what you're pointing out, and I understand that from your perspective why that would make sense to have someone that might also have a science degree. I think part of the discussion here was not to preclude an individual who has some ability to do this position from having an opportunity to do it. So I guess that's my point.
I have a lot to say about what you just said, sir, but I have a feeling my colleague has a question.
I do, because I want to clarify some of the comments made by my colleagues, because I want to clarify my understanding.
Sure.
We said if someone is going to supervise people with a science degree, do we know, that was my question, do we know if even those subordinates are required to have a science degree? I don't even, that was part of my question.
I see
we would have to take a look real quick.
Because if they do, that would make me, and I will agree with you that some people in managerial positions may not require a science degree, although not marketing, but a management degree, I would agree.
Sure.
They don't necessarily have to have a science degree to manage scientists. Not sure how the marketing degree will qualify them to manage scientists, but a management business degree overall could potentially. But I wonder if any of the subordinates even are required to have a science and engineering degree?
In my line of work, we call this rehabilitation. So let me try and rehabilitate you, okay?
Please.
I'm looking at this job specification and I'm looking at definition. And in definition, it states under general administrative direction. I am assuming that general administrative direction means someone who will give direction for administrative purposes. For this management classification, plans, coordinates, directs all internal clean energy efforts and business transformation operation activities for Glendale Water and Power, including new energy technology deployment, utility program development, and key account services. When I read that, I kind of see that this person is a PR person. Is going to go out there and educate everybody what it is that, DWP, or is that what we call it? DWP, DGP, GWP?
GWP, yes.
Okay, you know what I'm saying.
Yes.
And then I look at the bottom of the page, responsible for the maximization of key account customer satisfaction through increased information flow and development of new customized programs and services. And that's where I say to myself, where my colleagues are concerned about somebody having a science degree, I'm not, because I don't think somebody in a science degree is going to be the best person necessary to go and pitch clean energy or whatever else comes with clean energy. Someone with a science degree can easily tell me what it is that we're trying to do in the city, and I can go pitch it. And I know nothing about science. So I'm not so concerned, but I wanted to put it out there because obviously we can be concerned here until tomorrow morning at 12:01 a.m., but I'm not. Thank you.
Right. I would say, in my experience, it's not unheard of to have engineers work in semi-marketing roles or engage with customers, especially key accounts, just to expand their exposure to that customer interface. Most engineers, including myself, spend a lot of time working behind a desk. So I just wanted to clarify that, different roles get moved around different places, and it never hurts to have that additional exposure.
So I understand, and I'm looking at the definition, and if the primary function is going to be marketing, where a degree may be required in marketing, under the definition, we don't use the word marketing at all. So it would be helpful, even the title. So when you read the title and you read the definition,
Clean energy advocate, maybe?
I mean,
I don't know.
the title and maybe the definition may be considered, because my next question was going to be, were there any comparables? So if I was approached and I was asked, hey, Ara, we need you to create this unique position from the council, I would try to look around and see if there was anything else around me, Burbank, Pasadena, LA City,
Yes.
similar things, and I would look at their job specs. And I would, obviously, Glendale has higher standards, and I would add additional things if I needed to accommodate the city's needs. So my question is, have we looked at comparables, and are they similar to what we're doing here?
We have looked at comparables, just a couple off my top of my head. Santa Monica and Burbank are similar to us.
Okay.
We also looked at IOUs because they usually got a head start on these type of programs. They are primarily focused in the marketing arena also. Doesn't mean that they don't have engineering background or some science background, but they are primarily focused in marketing.
If you're done, sir. I guess I have two things floating around in my head. The number one is a lot of us start our life with our original technicality, whether it's medicine, dental, engineering, clean energy, law, whatever. And then as we move forward into our career, we get into supervisory and then management, director, leadership positions.
Right.
So here we are as our city, we're sending our token person by the name of Clean Energy Officer to sell ourselves to the world.
Right.
And this person knows nothing about engineering or the substance that we're doing in our department. He's just learning, reading materials, but doesn't know the technical aspect of the job that he's trying to sell and talk about. If I'm listening to someone talk about this, my first question is, do you even know what you're talking about? Because do you even have experience in this area? How did you learn this information?
That's an appropriate question to ask.
It's trust in the words that are coming out of this person's mouth. That's number one. That's the trust issue. The second issue is, I didn't have that big of a problem with this. I mean, other than the marketing versus engineering preferred. I mean, I would love engineering preferred, and then you can have marketing too if you feel like it.
Okay.
But I would love someone to have a marketing degree and then, an engineering degree as a bachelor's and then go into marketing as master's. Because now they're doing management, now they're doing business. That's what I would like to see in my head for this position. And then when we got to the chain of command, if we want this person to just be a spokesperson, why are we making them responsible for people who may need to have an engineering degree? Now we're giving them duality. It makes no sense to have them be the spokesperson, but also the manager of people who do engineering work.
Go ahead.
If I may.
Yes, sure, go ahead.
Commissioner Gazarian, Chair Gazarian, Commissioners, Aura Hatamian, welcome back. Steve Nersessian, Deputy General Manager, Glendale Water and Power. In my former life, most of you know I've spent many years here in this body. We have done extensive research on this position, including the title. We have looked at everything we can. So this is the most appropriate title out there. What we essentially are trying to do is have the best opportunity to get the best qualified candidate. This is a new phenomena out there. This is a direction coming from City Council. None of the folks underneath this position have an engineering degree. Our intent is exactly what Chair Gazarian explained. We don't want to close. We don't want to have a recruitment where we cannot have it broad enough to get the best qualified candidate. And a position such as this, we're probably going to go out and hire a recruiter to go out there and find us the best qualified candidate.
I guess I will respectfully disagree that someone who's selling clean energy, not having that kind of substantive experience would make the best qualified candidate. So we'll agree to disagree.
If I may just chime in also. So on page 35, Steve, while you're up there, this may be directed towards you actually. Sorry to pull you back to the podium. But like under experience, right? So we're looking under experience under minimum requirement. So I'm kind of like the hybrid, right? Garo is saying engineering degree Mr. Gazarian may say engineering degree may not be required. And then we have others on the commission that feel that engineering degree may be required. But when I'm looking at the experience, and it says, and this is on page 35, 6 years of progressively responsible management level experience in any two or more combination of the following principles. Public benefit programs. For me, I would X that out. Just because I would want to get a pool of people that actually know what they're talking about. They might not have the degree, but they may be demand response, or then you have also clean energy project management. That I like. Somebody who has clean project management experience, that may be part of their minimum requirement. But if I hire someone that has public benefit programs, I'm assuming it has to do with my pension? No. Then enlighten me on that.
So PPC is actually a separate charge fund. It's something we collect through the billing process from when electric pays their bills, and that money's put aside. 3%? I think it's 3% right off the top of my head of the bills go towards that, and it's set aside for us to put into programs to put towards things like incentives for solar adoption, incentives for electrification, incentives for reducing or demand response, reducing loads in people's houses. So that is a very specific thing and almost exclusively handled through marketing.
Got it. So this would also be in relation to somebody who's worked in clean energy and or for a department that deals with water and power.
Yeah.
Do we need to say that here? Because I can tell you, I work in the public sector. I've worked in the public sector for a very long time. Public benefits program, for me, may not be clear enough. To you, it may be, because you folks are in that arena,
yes.
Right? So maybe we should say in a public works program.
Commissioner Hatamian, if I may, if it works with the commission, perhaps we can add utility public benefits program. If that would be an alternative to make it more clear, we can certainly do that.
Public utility programs? Is that what you want to say?
Utility public benefits program.
Or capitalize it.
Or capitalize it. We
Yeah,
can
it's
certainly
something
do
that will lead
Absolutely.
an applicant to know that I need to have worked in that field that deals with public utilities. I know you can, and then maybe that'll eliminate some of the concerns pertaining to the degree.
As long as you keep the smart grid development in there. I like that.
So account services, I'm assuming it has to do with utilities also?
Yes,
Demand response, also with utilities, right?
exclusively.
And then clean energy project management, that's obviously, I would think that would be a desirable, but yes, obviously. And then demand side management, that also is within utilities? Very good.
Yes.
Okay.
Anything else, or is that a motion?
That is a motion. I would just want the experience portion to be clarified, that it reflects public utilities.
And I just want to clarify again, my position and my inquiry was, again, I don't take the position that a manager necessarily needs to have the specific, narrow, concentrated educational background. Somebody can manage scientists and not have a science degree. I think I'm of that position. But now I've come to learn that none of the subordinates have a science degree or are required to have a science degree. Well, we know Mr. Millen personally, as of right now, he does have an engineering degree.
I hope to keep it.
Yes. The question is, somebody who may replace you at any time, anybody above this person, the two positions above this person, are they required to have a science degree?
And
Or
you
engineering
could,
degree?
forgive me, Commissioner, you may answer that, but I don't think that's the subject of this agenda item. And I don't
It's
know,
not, I'm
do-
just
do we go into
wondering.
that or no?
I think it's in furtherance of the question of the necessary degrees,
It's
so.
just my comfort level. If this person is not required to have an engineering degree, I wonder again, if anybody on this chain of command is required to have an engineering degree. I've come to learn that no one below this person is required to have. Now the question is if anyone above this person is required to have.
And you can answer that, but I want, as I'm hearing my fellow commissioners speak, I am thinking of office administrators in law firms, including mine, who do not have a law degree.
Right.
And I couldn't function without them, but I have the law degree, so I
That's
hope
where
that
my
somebody.
question is.
Yeah, I hope so, somebody above it.
That's where my
I'm
question
assuming
is.
that, but.
You have the degree,
Right,
they may
but I'm
function as well.
assuming- Let me finish. please.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I'm assuming that the city of Glendale doesn't have a department that deals with clean energy without anybody knowing what clean energy is or having the requisite degrees. Tell us.
That's a good assumption.
That was my question 20 minutes ago.
I mean, so,
Right. I guess my question is, every time you send this person out into the world
Yes.
to sell whatever this wonderful department does, are you going to go with them to answer substantive questions, or are they going to be asked questions that they don't have answers to because they're a marketing person there to do a salesperson job, but not answer technical questions? That's my problem, because while you may have someone in your law firm who's intricate in the position and you can't work without them,
Nobody goes
you're
marketing
not
for
going
me.
marketing,
Nobody
you're
does
not sending
marketing.
your office manager marketing, you're going yourself.
I don't
That's the
advertise.
problem. So unless you're going to go to every single position, every time this person goes to speak and do anything, unless you yourself, Mr.
Melon.
Yes, Mel, who has that engineering degree, then what we're doing is leaving a hole in our department, because you can't sell something if you don't fully know it. So if we can have an engineer, someone who has that engineering background, who has advanced to the level of being a management person, who now just does management. I have a family member who used to design pagers and Nokia cell phones. Guess what? He's in the legal department doing patent work now with a law degree. That's what you do. He became management because, by the age of 45, no one wanted an engineer who was designing phones. He was too old. So he moved up to doing other things. So that's what you do. But if anyone wants to, if anyone's selling anything, he knows, because he knows the job. So that's what I'm saying. I don't believe we can sell something we don't know. And once you hire this person and send this person out into the world without knowledge of the substance that they're selling, that's going to create a problem. I don't want them to have a bewildered look on their face when someone decides to ask a question about the topic of the department. You have to know the topic of the department, not just how to sell it.
Okay, hold on. Well, you may answer that question, but then after that, I'd like to return to a motion that was made, whether it is seconded, not seconded, and if it's not, then move further from there. Go ahead.
So, to the first question that you asked, would I send them out there? At least in the first year, I wouldn't send them out there all by themselves if they didn't have knowledge of Glendale Water and Power in general or our customers. I wouldn't put them in front of our customers without introduction and without the knowledge I already have, regardless of whether it's engineering or just the face-to-face time. As it moves into the future, I would expect them to adapt and pick up some knowledge sufficient enough to have that intimate conversations with the customers and to sell the product. But it wouldn't be unheard of if we were to send them out with an engineer also. It depends on what products they're selling. If they're hyping up our incentive program for solar installations, it would make sense for us to send an engineer from the distribution group out there to actually talk about the feasibility of some of those things in different locations. So I'm not putting any of my personnel in harm's way, in quotes. I want to make sure they go out there with all the knowledge that they can. Okay. That's my response to you. Okay.
Thank you.
I like the combination. Sorry, I like the combination of the marketing degree with the experience. The 6 years of experience of somebody who's worked in that arena and who has the ability to market something and is driven, I think that's a good thing. But I guess we'll refer back to what the motion was to clarify the experience level. And so that way your potential candidate, you know, if they have a marketing degree and they have the experience, the combination of that too hopefully will result in a good candidate.
Yes. And just technicality to clarify, Commissioner Hatamian, it'll be utilities public benefits. We can't say public utilities benefits. So we're gonna have the utilities at front to make it more clear for the general audience.
And I like how it doesn't say one of these experiences, it says two or more.
Yeah.
And if you wanted to make the clean energy project component as an essential experience combined with the other things, because they're not as directly related, let's say, to clean energy, that's also something to take into consideration.
I'm so sorry. I do have one question about the essential functions. The third one manages staff, contractors, and consulting firms. Are these consulting firms that do clean energy work? How do you manage consulting firms with a marketing degree?
You can do that quite simply, but yes, potentially.
Okay.
We're already doing it, to be quite blunt. We manage contracts with Willdan and Franklin, which are primarily engineering-focused groups that develop programs, but we do it from a marketing perspective because the presence that they have is a marketing interface, but just an engineering implementation.
Okay, thank you.
So if I can just clarify, I think you were making a motion, Commissioner Hatamian, to approve the bulletin with additional language in the experience section, adding the word utility in front of public benefit program.
Yes, and also key account services, demand response, just to further clarify that these are experiences that within utility companies.
So key account services within utility companies, is that, I'm just going to go ahead and add that here within. Okay, and then.
So if I was to start from the beginning, public benefit programs,
So
to state, public benefit utility programs.
Utility public benefit programs.
Or utility public. However you guys deem it to be appropriate to ensure that the terminology here reflects that the two or more combination of the experience reflects that these experiences are within a utility company.
Okay. And then key account services within a utility company.
Okay, yes.
And then the next part was?
So key account services.
Within a utility company.
If you wanted to simplify, you could say 6 years of progressive responsible management-led experience in any two or more combination of the following principles within a utility company, and then list the following.
Okay.
Is
that acceptable?
I might make a suggestion simplified, would it make more sense, or as an option, 2 or more combination of the following utility principles? Because that, and then it's colon and it gets into all the structures
And
of
then
the
it goes
utility
into the
principles.
different areas within the utility companies, absolutely.
Okay.
Because then you make one change and we don't have.
I got you.
And Commissioner Hatamian, we also have on the first page, page 33, direct personnel and activities in support of public benefit programs. Should that say utilities public benefit programs?
We can certainly add that as well.
Yes.
For consistency.
Okay, so your motion is to approve the bulletin with the addition of those two specific areas.
Correct. My concern again was more of the minimum requirements to ensure that the definition, the essential functions, I agree that we should also include that in the motion, but again, my focus was more on the experience.
Okay,
So I think we have a motion, we're looking
Forgive
for a
me,
second
I
at this
need a
point.
motion read and seconded so we can move on. With all due respect for everybody's concerns, I think the concerns are very well set out by you, Commissioner Hatamian, by you, Commissioner, and by you, Commissioner. So let's set a motion, let's give a motion that is cohesive. Someone can possibly, hopefully, second it. Because your intention is already well set out. All of our intentions are known at this time. I need to exercise a bit of prerogative to move this item, please.
So let me just, on page 35, to add the word utilities in the section of experience after the word following. Following utilities principles.
In other words, it will read, with your modification, 6 years of progressively responsible management level experience and 2 or more combination of the following utility principles.
Correct.
Thank you. And I believe,
More place.
I believe there was one more.
And that was on page 33.
Page 33, the fourth paragraph from the bottom. I believe the request was to add the word utility so that that paragraph reads, directs personnel and activities in support of utility public benefit programs. Is that correct?
So the motion then is to approve the bulletin with those two additions.
That is
just mentioned.
correct. And that is Commissioner Hatamian's motion. I simply stated it for the record. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Hatamian,
Yes.
Commissioner Hartunian,
Yes.
Commissioner McGravian,
No.
Chair Gazarian.
Yes. Thank you. Next item, please.
Thank you.
Class specification for approval, Legislative Affairs and Communications Manager.
Thank you. Ms. Adams.
Yes, Mr. Chair and members of the commission, we are here to request your approval for the newly established class specification for the Legislative Affairs and Communications Manager position in the City Manager's Office. In order to oversee citywide legislation and communications for the City Manager's Office, they are seeking to add the new classification on this team, which we believe is necessary to consolidate roles previously provided by a PIO and a senior executive analyst who no longer are working in our city. Key city departments have staff that are tasked with limited communications tasks, but this position is very distinct in that it will be responsible for citywide communications efforts, ensuring the city speaks with one voice in marketing, branding, and following legislation that is in alignment with the CEO of the city's expectations, city council priorities, and initiatives when communicating with the public. Recognizing that we are seeking to pair roles of legislative affairs and communications, moving in this direction is key in the modern political landscape, particularly in municipal government. Typically, these transactions go before the City Council first to establish the title and pay, followed by the Civil Service Commission to approve the class specification. But exactly as in the last item, given our schedule and the immediate need to fill the position, the class specification is being presented for the Commission's approval first in order to prevent any delays with the resolution and establishing the classification of Legislative Affairs and Communications Manager, which will go before the City Council on September 26, 2023. The Glendale Management Association has been given an opportunity to review the new class specification and has not expressed any concerns. So we are requesting that the newly established class specification be approved as submitted. We do have HR staff here, along with Elena Bobolian, our Chief Innovation Officer, who works in the City Manager's office, and they will be happy to answer any specific questions that you may have.
I do have questions.
You may pose your question.
Thank you. I was looking at the educational requirement and saw that there is no law degree required for this position, which is fine. However, when I read the portions about the ability to, it talks about offering advice regarding legislative issues to city departments. Advice regarding legislative issues is a legal function. Understanding and interpreting federal, state, and local laws is a legal function. Someone who does not have a law degree cannot perform these functions. It's in the ethical rules. It's actually not a legal function to, it's not legal to perform legal duties when you don't have a law degree. So those I would recommend being eliminated or changed in some way to make it compliant with ethical obligations and legal requirements. It just sounds like lawyering. That's my concern. It's not really a question, but it's a concern and a suggestion.
Sure. Commissioners Elena Bobolian, City Manager's Office. A very good point, Commissioner McRobian. In practice, what happens is whenever we are involved in a situation like that, we would always consult the City Attorney's Office, just to confirm our understanding of the legislation and its impacts to the city. But if it makes sense, we can certainly add in consultation with the City Attorney's Office, if that's okay.
We definitely need something because this position cannot interpret.
I understand.
Or what was they're buzzwords. They're very important buzzwords. This position cannot interpret or understand policy laws or offer advice. So we need different words. Sure. So we can say in conjunction with the City Attorney's Office, understanding and interpreting or communicate something. This person can communicate what the City Attorney's Office has advised them, but cannot do the functions themselves. So the language has, what you suggested is not going enough there too. We need to protect this position. We need to protect the person who's in this position.
Understood.
Here we go. We also have under the essential functions, analyzes and evaluates legislation. That is a legal function.
I'm sorry, where are you reading?
Under essential functions, page 39. I do want to add, when I read the memo on this about having one voice for all of the departments coming from the city attorney's office, I thought this is a wonderful idea. The position is a wonderful idea. I just want to make sure we're not hitting into problems of making this person, essentially, we're stating to the world we're asking this person to perform legal functions without having a law degree.
So I'm also open to either removing them or just clarifying that this person, again, would consult with the city attorney's office. So I'm open to either option.
It's terrible that I've mentioned a problem, but I'm not offering a workable solution. Let's see. How about under essential functions, we say communicates legislation affecting the city?
Are you referring to the second paragraph under essential functions?
Yes.
Monitors, analyzes, and evaluates legislation affecting the city?
Yes, so instead of monitors, analyzes, and evaluates legislation affecting the city, we can say communicates legislation affecting the city.
Even with the analysis, I don't think that amounts to offering legal advice. So we have no objection to leaving the language the way that it is.
I don't believe someone without a legal degree can analyze legislation or evaluate it. I simply believe that's a legal function. Even attorneys go to litigation for 5 years arguing on who's analyzing and who's evaluating it and who's understanding and interpreting law better than the other.
Sure, but most staffers that draft legislation don't have a law degree.
But they work in conjunction with someone who does, correct?
Yes, and I think that's pretty clear from the comments that they would work with the city attorney's office to do that.
And I would say the words monitor and evaluate are things they would do. I understand the concern with the word analyze, but they definitely monitor and evaluate.
If I may just chime in. So take, for example, a health and safety officer that goes around and ensures that a work facility in a government sector adheres to Cal OSHA requirements pertaining to safety. That individual does not possess a law degree, right? But then what they do, they monitor and ensure that, and they evaluate things. They come in and they look at a work site and they say, for example, take something as simple as an ergonomic evaluation, where they come and they see whether or not the chairs and things are gonna cause injury to the employee. They evaluate liability at that moment. But I do understand your perspective. It's just what I'm trying to do is shed some light on as to what goes on like within the government sector, as to how they view these words. I understand the word analyze, and the first thing that pops into my mind is like an IRAC, right? You're gonna analyze a legal component and give advice and give legal advice. It's shy of that, it's way shy of that. What it is you have individuals within the government sector that come in and they say, they're provided information like updates by their legal counsel, and they go out there and they sort of monitor and implement and ensure that the departments are adhering to certain things.
I'm 100% with you, but that's not what these words say. It doesn't say analyzes certain things to make sure they comply with legislation. It says evaluates legislation. So I'm with you. I've seen that happening every day. People are required to know what the legal requirements are. But here's the thing. Someone who is talking about ergonomic positions, they're not thrown by themselves to go read, the law and the legislative intent. Someone gives them things to look for, and they go and look for those things and say these things are not met. But they're not being asked. No one says, here's AB 1, 2, 3, 4, read it and figure it out and come give me advice about it. So the way it's not. I don't have a problem with what the intent is. It's just that the way it's written. I don't have a problem with the word monitor. I have a problem with the word analyze and evaluates legislation. Those words put together, to me, create the appearance of doing legal work.
It's not legal work. I can think of a specific individual in the Community Development Department who took AB 1482 and studied it in connection with how housing laws are affected in the city of Glendale. He worked with our office when he had legal questions, followed up with the drafters of the legislation, and was able to provide that level of analysis as a layperson without a law degree. I don't think this position is anticipating the individual to be a lawyer, but to take the state law or take other legislation and put it in the context of the city. And potentially that individual should have subject matter expertise to understand the legal implications of what is being offered at the state level, but not offer a legal opinion as to what the state legislation is stating.
I'm in agreement with you. Everything you said, I'm in agreement with you. I just do believe the way it is phrased makes it look like they're giving the legal opinion. It's the appearance.
So again, so like in LA County, for example, as you know, you have advocates that may have JDs and or are not licensed, and they'll present cases in front of a commission, they'll set the record, they'll analyze facts, etc., right? I think what in the county, the legislative affairs unit reports up the chain and it goes to council.
Exactly.
So what ends up happening is, for example, even that lady or gentleman who does ergonomics, he or she is provided some kind of training that comes from above for them to be able to evaluate legal issues and or risk and so on. And I think some of these things are almost like presumed that this individual, if need be, they're gonna go to council and obtain the advice necessary for them to carry out any type of a legislation update to the city. But to further clarify, the commission can consider to include that language as you suggested, to say with the consultation of city attorney's office.
That's all I want. To know that it's not going to be an implied thing, that it is going to be this person will be working with in conjunction with the city attorney's office.
Is there another question to the presenter? Any other questions to the presenter?
I have a comment or a suggestion, see if it'll alleviate the concerns and if it's acceptable. Going back to what was mentioned, if there is a language somewhere, an umbrella language that this position either operates in conjunction with or under the supervision of the city attorney's office, or under the abilities to, not the second to the last sentence, instead of saying understand, interpret, and explain, what if we said understand and communicate federal, state, local policies, laws, and regulations?
What page did you just?
Page 41, under the ability to, second to the last sentence, would it be acceptable to say, instead of understand, interpret, and explain the federal, state laws and regulations, to say understand and communicate federal, state, and local policies, laws, and regulations?
That would alleviate my concern.
Would that work for the city? Would that be acceptable? Is there a concern?
No, there's no concern. That's an acceptable change.
Okay, thank you. How about up top, review, discuss, and offer advice to city departments?
I'm sorry.
Is it under abilities?
It's a.
Okay, I see that. Okay, review, discuss.
Can you please refer to the specific area for us?
Page 41.
Yes.
Ability to.
Yes.
It's about 8 lines from the bottom. It says review, discuss, and offer advice to city departments regarding legislative and policy issues.
Can we also make that communicate?
Yes.
Review, discuss, and communicate to the city departments regarding, or communicate with the city departments regarding legislative and policy issues.
That would
Does that work?
alleviate my
Yes,
concern.
that change also works.
Okay.
Just for the record, though, that goes on in HR on a daily basis, just because we review local employment codes and stuff, and you don't have attorneys working in HR, and they consult department heads all day long. So long as it works for the city, I don't want to limit your ability to be able to get this person to perform at their highest function level and not cap them or limit them. But this, just frankly, it goes on in the government sector all the time.
It's just a buzzword that says legal function. And I understand what you're saying. I understand the practical aspect. I just don't want to write it in such a way in a job spec that makes it look like this person's performing legal functions. I do believe the person can review, discuss, and offer advice to city departments, and it will still be termed as communicate. So by writing the word communicate, I don't believe we're chaining this person's arms and not letting them do their job.
Yeah, it's up to the city. If they think that you will be able to sufficiently utilize this person, and it would not limit your ability to utilize this person to its maximum ability, then those changes are
We're the
appropriate.
first to consult the city attorney's office anytime something is even potentially unclear or we're too late of people to understand it. So these changes are acceptable.
Thank you. Under the definition, can we also add, as the commissioner suggested, instead of under general direction, we can add under general direction and in consultation with the city attorney's office.
I guess my comment to that is this person is going to be overseeing two functions. As it relates to the legislative affairs, they're going to be working with the city's outside consultant who also monitors this legislation and lets us know, again, raising all those issues to the city attorney's office. So I'm not as comfortable adding that here because that's going to be such a small component of what they do. A lot of their direction is going to come either from myself or the assistant city manager. And so I'm not comfortable adding supervision from the city attorney's office under the definition.
Not supervision, consultation, or in conjunction with something, just the word city attorney's office, or somewhere here that says they will, work with the city attorney's office. Something that says they will be working with the city attorney's office.
I'm comfortable adding that to essential functions. I just feel the definition accurately captures what this employee
That's
is.
fine.
Okay.
And I don't care where it is as long as we have it somewhere.
Excuse me. Ma'am, who drafted this specification?
I drafted it and then had it reviewed by HR.
Okay. Very well. Maybe this is the evening that I will continue to disagree with some of my colleagues, because to me, we probably have a fundamental different approach as to what constitutes practice of law. My law clerks analyze, evaluate, discovery, and give me everything I need to know so I make an ultimate decision. They do not practice law so long as they don't give advice to any outside public or clientele of mine. I don't know much about legislative affairs, but I did hear our counsel say that analyzing and evaluating legislation is done regularly by non-lawyers, and that I have personal knowledge of in every elected office, from local to congressional to senatorial. So I want to caution us, I don't want us to be sitting here and rewriting every item that comes before us. And I see that this evening we've done a lot of that. I know that, everybody has the concerns, but let's be focused, because it seems like we're spending time rewriting. And that's why I wanted to know who wrote this, because I certainly have no interest in writing this. If I wanted to, I would have gotten a job working for you folks or with you folks. But I appreciate everybody's concern, and I know I don't minimize it. I just don't share those concerns as to this item this evening either. Thank you.
And I always respect everyone respectfully disagreeing with my decisions or my ideas or opinions.
Very well. So now, with all of these modifications, can someone recite what is the motion and what amendments, preferably starting from the earlier pages, 39, 40, 41, whatever it is, and then hopefully there'll be a second, and then we'll move to a vote.
Mr. Gazarian, before we do, just one quick note. So I'm comparing this position to the previous management health position, and for the sake of consistency, I just want to recommend, and it'll open you guys up too for the future, on page 40. For management positions, there's language that is included which state performs other related duties as assigned or as the situation requires. This will open you guys up to be able to use this individual for other circumstances also. So was that considered? And I'm assuming that this is boilerplate language that sometimes management title classifications get. So my recommendation would be that right above minimum requirements, that language is also included for it to be consistent with the previous management title that we just reviewed, that came out of Glendale Water and Power.
Commissioner Hatamian, I believe it's there, it's just 4 lines up. It's not the last bullet.
Okay, that throws me off too then. So is there, are there templates that are used just to ensure that, because I know the customer service and ethical, it pops up first, and then this is somewhere else in the order. Usually those come last, because what you want to do, you want to list your duties, and this is the almost like the general open-ended duty that you put in there to say, I want you to do the above, but hey, here's the open provision that additional tasks that come up, I would like you to also perform.
Yes, we're in the process of working on our templates and exemplars. We don't have a set database for that, but we're working to get there.
Okay, so I just have that very minimal recommendation.
Is there a motion?
I can help with identifying the 2 specific places where comments were made.
Thank you.
There was a third comment that was made where staff was not in position to accept, but there was a suggestion that it be added at a different location. That was not finalized, so I have not captured that. But I do have on page 41, under the title Ability 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6th bullet point from the bottom, that it should say, review, discuss, and communicate with city departments regarding legislative and policy issues. The second place for the amendment was the second from the bottom, and that would say, understand and communicate federal, state, and local policy laws and regulate policies, and then maybe comma, laws and regulations. Those were the 2 specific amendments that I was able to track.
And Ms. Verbetian, I think you mentioned about about the first, on the first page, rather page 39, a suggestion that was made by Commissioner McRobian, which was declined, but my understanding is Commissioner McRobian would be satisfied if that language, consultation with city council, city attorney, was included elsewhere. And with that, may I propose for my fellow commissioners the following. Under essential functions, page 39, it says ensures department services are provided, and those are the services that are listed thereafter, with exceptional customer service and the highest level of ethical standards in consultations with the city attorney.
Beautiful.
Thank you. Very well. That will be the motion that if somebody makes it.
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Roll call, please. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Hatamian?
Yes.
Commissioner Hartunian?
Yes.
Commissioner McGrabian?
Yes.
Chair Gazarian?
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item, please.
Cost specification for approval, environmental waste technician series.
Thank you. Ms. Adams?
Yes, Mr. Chair and members of the commission, we are here to request your approval for the newly established class specification for the Environmental Waste Technician Series within the Public Works Department. During the June 13th, 2023 meeting with the City Council, they approved the establishment of the series, and now the class specification is before you, including the essential functions and minimum qualification for each of the respective positions for the series. The series shall be responsible for coordinating field inspections and office work to comply with the city's fats, oils, and grease program in food service establishments, wastewater sampling, edible food recovery, and sewer systems management. Positions within the series will also investigate residents' concerns regarding environmental issues related to the sanitary sewer system, including odor complaints. The Glendale City Employees Association has been notified of the department's request for the proposed new classifications and has not expressed any concerns. So we are requesting that the newly established Environmental Waste Technician Series be approved as submitted. We have HR staff here, as well as Dan Hargrove, the Assistant Director of Public Works, and John Hicks, the Wastewater Maintenance Superintendent, and they are happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Any questions? No questions? Any motions?
I do have one question, just very briefly.
Go ahead.
The environmental waste technician, that's an entry-level position, is that correct?
Chair Gazarian, members of the commission, Commissioner Hatamian, yes, that says below.
Do you believe that the one-year experience would give you a wide enough of a pool of candidates?
Yes, yeah,
Well?
yeah. We promote internal professional development, so anything where we need to develop a person, we have a good.
Very good.
If there are no other questions, is there a motion? Is there a question?
No.
I will move to approve as offered.
Is there a second?
A second.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Hatamian?
Yes.
Commissioner Hartunian?
Yes.
Commissioner McGrabian?
Yes.
Chair Gazarian?
Yes, thank you. Next item, please.
Job bulletin for approval, Senior Administrative Officer, Community Development Department.
Thank you. Ms. Adams?
Yes, Mr. Chair and members of the commission, we are seeking your approval for the open job bulletin for Senior Administrative Officer, Community Development Department. The civil service rules require that promotional positions that will be now open to the public return to the commission for approval prior to opening a new recruitment and promulgating the job opening. The last recruitment was conducted 5 years ago in 2018. The city has a limited number of internal employees who will qualify for this opportunity, and we are seeking to broaden the applicant pool by opening up this opportunity to the public. The proposed job bulletin is consistent with the approved class specification. This position shall be responsible for performing highly complex administrative duties in connection with the day-to-day operation of the Community Development Department and assisting the Deputy Director of CDD by creating studies, preparing a variety of reports with recommendations including managing audits, project management, budget oversight, and supervising staff. The Glendale Management Association has been given an opportunity to review the open job bulletin and has not expressed any concerns. So we are requesting the proposed open job bulletin for Senior Administrative Officer, Community Development Department be approved as submitted. We have HR staff here, as well as Tomar Saad, the Deputy Director of CDD. They are both here and will be happy to answer any other questions that you may have.
Thank you. Any questions?
I have one.
Go ahead.
Good evening. Hi.
Evening.
Thank you for being here. My question is about the conflict and complaint resolution requirement. Just curious as to the reasoning. If you could, I guess, elaborate what that means in this context, and then just some background as to why this is a desired or required skill for this position.
Thank you for the question. Hello, Chair and Commission members. My name is Tomar Saad. I am the Deputy Director for Community Development, and this position would report to me. Community Development is encompassed 6 divisions: Neighborhood Services, Building and Safety, Planning, Economic Development, and Housing. The Administration Division really serves as the administrators for the entire department. So a lot of questions, concerns, comments, whether they come from the City Council or members of the public, while there are divisions that can respond to those if they touch multiple divisions, it ends up coming to administration to facilitate that conversation between all the divisions and provide that response to the public. So somebody that has conflict management experience would be highly desirable. Whether that's a permit taking too long or a code enforcement case that's gone awry, this is something that they would be expected to also take care of.
Thank you.
Any questions? Any other questions?
Just one brief question on the minimum requirements. Under knowledge, skills, and abilities, budget processes and procedures, and then it goes on listing other minimum requirements. Is that an or an and, or both, or either one?
I'm sorry, if you could point me to.
Sure, I'm
where-
sorry, page 55, right under minimum requirements where it says knowledge, skill, and abilities, knowledge of. So usually with desirables, you can list it as such, but
It would be all of them.
All
We
of
would
them.
We would want them to have knowledge of all of these requirements.
Would it be possible to put semicolons at the end of each one and right before principles and practices of supervision, put and? That would
Or-
communicate that.
Or knowledge of all of the following.
Right.
Call.
Correct.
And then.
So, good evening again, once again. Just to clarify, these are some standard languages that we use. As far as the semicolons go, we don't, it wouldn't necessarily comply with the rest of the class
Right.
specifications that we have. So as far as, is this a minimum requirement? It's really not. These are some skills that we would like for the candidates to possess. The minimum qualifications that we screen them are under the experience, education, and certificates and license.
So then these are not ands, these are ors, preferences?
Correct.
Got it.
so these are more like desirables, not minimum requirements.
So a senior administrative officer in community development should have a knowledge of budgetary processes, business practices, knowledge of customer service, conflict complaint resolution. Because it's a management position, they will be supervising. So these are some of the basic, obvious things, for lack of a better
Mr.
term.
Randonian, I'm gonna stop you.
Go ahead.
Because you just contradicted yourself. You said these are not the minimum requirements. The minimum requirements were the experience, education. But so these are actually, these are requirements.
Let me rephrase that. We don't screen them by that. I should have said.
What do you mean by you don't screen them by that?
We screen applications based on experience, education.
Right.
But these are some of the.
These are some of the minimum
qualities.
requirements that goes without saying.
Correct.
Assuming they have the educational minimum requirements.
Thank you. Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I have one question. I will hold off on this. Others have no other questions. Do you have a question?
No.
So I have a question. When the selection process is listed on the bottom of page 56, it says Candidates must pass each exam component with a minimum score of 70% in order to be placed on the eligible list. I understand that. Then it says oral interview, weight of 100%. Well, so what does that mean? That means is this what it means? That you take the exam, you, an applicant, takes the exam, you score 70%, there's 10 of you who score 70% or higher, then you go to oral exam, but the oral exam ultimately decides whether you get hired or not, because that's 100%. Is that what it means?
So let me clarify that, Chair Gazarian.
Sure.
So that means the selection process contains one component, which is oral interview. As you can see, there's no other component beside the initial screening of the application. We screen the application, we determine if the candidate is qualified or not. We invite them to the next phase, which is the only phase in this case, is the oral interview. And we ask that the candidate pass with 70% the interview and to be placed on an eligible list.
Oh, so when you're saying pass each exam component with a minimum score of 70%, you're really referring to the oral interview?
Correct.
So then it should be under the oral interview portion, not above, because it seems that you have to pass something at 70% to allow yourself to be orally interviewed.
So that's a good question. That's another boilerplate language that we use. So, so what we do here is, not all recruitments obviously are just oral exams.
Right.
Some of them are written, some of them are performance, some of them all of the above.
Right.
And we place that on top to list that the following exam components, in this case is just the oral, is 100% of your final score. And
I see. And you need to score 70% or higher to be in the eligible list.
That is correct, Chair Gazarian.
Well, I mean,
It's a little confusing.
it is confusing. Yeah, it is.
confusing.
But not enough for me to get all worked up over it. But
It's the end of the day. I think we're tired of being worked up. If this
yeah.
is number one.
Any
on the
motions to
agenda.
approve this?
I do want to give kudos that performs other related duties as assigned or as the situation requires is there as a last ability. But I also do want to make a recommendation just in general, because when it comes to minimum requirements in any exam, you'll say, for example, 5 years of such and such experience or related to such and such experience, or let's say a bachelor's degree. Here, the ors and the ands, if I'm an applicant and I don't see the ors and the ands, I get a little confused, because if I apply and I only have budgetary process and procedures experience, I might think that I qualified, whereas I need to hit all of these. I need to have experience in all of them. So I think it might just take time, and as Ms. Adams pointed out, the department may be going through the transition where they're looking at these templates and ensuring that the language is consistent, even if it is something as performs other related duties as assigned. That comes at the end always, right? Because it's the open-ended catch-all. And also as to our minimum requirements, how we word it. So therefore, the candidates, we don't want to give them any level of confusion. And at the same time, we don't want to open ourselves up if somebody doesn't get the job and says, this was not, for example, clearly articulated to me. So I do have a motion. It's just to clarify the minimum requirements and add the appropriate either the and or the or as to what the minimum requirements are to be. So therefore, candidates can have further clarity when they apply.
Yes,
The
we
clarity-
received that feedback. Thank you.
The clarity is important, because if someone is not happy about not being selected, can easily find an attorney who says, this doesn't say and, this doesn't say or, and my client didn't get the position because of enter protected category here. So in order to preclude any lack of clarity helps employment lawyers, and helps plaintiffs' employment lawyers and hurts defense employment lawyers. And so the clarification actually will protect the city from any potential liability in the future. And I do like the addition of knowledge and skill and ability of all of the following.
Noted. Thank you.
So I would make I would move to accept this position as presented with the addition of that language, as Commissioner Hatamian suggested. Thank you.
Is there a second?
I second.
Roll call?
Commissioner Hatamian?
Yes.
Commissioner Hartunian?
Yes.
Commissioner McGrabian?
Yes.
Chair Gazarian?
Yes, thank you. Next item, please.
Reports and information, employee job performance evaluations, past due aging report.
So thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the commission. Before you is an informational report on performance evaluation and the return status for City of Glendale's employees. As you can see, the response rate is very good. There are no past due evaluations on the second noticed list. If the commission has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Otherwise, this is a note and file item.
I just want to commend you for not having any past due performance evaluations, because I have 2 of them in my inbox that are due tomorrow. So kudos to the HR staff.
Thank
you. I have, is there any questions? I have a question. It lists salaried employee count 631 as total.
No. So if you look at the departments that have any evaluations that have not been received in HR within 59 days or less from their due date.
Yes.
There are a total of 631 people represented in those categories.
Okay, because I was thinking, I thought we had a lot more employees in the city of Glendale. What happened?
Right.
Okay.
Of that 631, we're waiting on 15. They will be in our office before they hit that second notice category.
Very well. Thank you. Anything else? If not, next item, please.
Civil Service Commission, staff comments.
Comments?
May I?
Please.
I just want to welcome Commissioner Hatamian. I know you have a lot of experience. I can tell you have a lot of experience in this field, and I look forward to learning from you and working with you. Welcome back.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate being back, and I learned the same amount from you guys. So the respect goes across the room. Also to the HR staff, to the city for bringing me back. I hope that we can improve on our processes as I do on a daily basis on my processes. So I'm very thankful to be here. I'm grateful to be here. I'm grateful to have Ms. Varpetian to my left as our counsel, who's going to guide us through this process. So thank you very much, everyone.
I would like to also welcome you, Commissioner Hatamian. I remember we crossed paths as you left for family reasons, and I tried to fill the seat that you vacated. I think it's only fitting that you fill the seat that I would like to vacate, and then we will have come full circle in the near future. I'm excited to have both Commissioner McGrabian and you join us, because for some time it was the gentleman to my right, myself, and Commissioner McCarley, who I thought was going to join us so we can acknowledge his service to this commission and the city, but I guess he could not make it, and we look forward to the opportunity to do that. Another acknowledgement I would like to make is this is the 22nd anniversary week of 9/11. It's always a month that evokes a great deal of emotions in me, and I'm sure in many of us, because I know exactly where I was when the towers were hit, when the Pentagon was hit, and when the plane crashed in Pennsylvania. I want to take a moment and close this meeting with a solemn remembrance to all of the men and women of the New York City Fire Department, the New York City Police Department, and New York City Port Authority, and all of the volunteers. And it is a appropriate for us to recognize that the men and women in our city, in the departments of fire, police, and all the other departments, this is a week that we should pause and say thank you, because they put their lives on the line, and their family members hope that they return home every day when their shift is concluded. So let's take a moment, and we will adjourn with that. Thank you. Thank you. Next item,
Adjournment.
somebody move to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
We are adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Thank you all.